participants from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, Florida licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And today I'm chatting with Dr. Cecilia Tomori about her upcoming presentation titled Resolving Cultural Conflicts in Nighttime Breastfeeding and Infant Sleep. Welcome, Cecilia.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you with us here today, and this is a wonderful topic. I'm really excited to learn a little bit more. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I grew up in Hungary and then eventually I immigrated to the United States, and that's actually where I learned English. So I'm not a native speaker of the language, and it's part of sort of how often anthropologists start their work is being bicultural themselves. And so I was very interested in the United States and other cultures as well. And then eventually, as my professional interests evolved, I was always very interested in things having to do with health, with bodies, with illness, well-being, and inequality. And so I ended up doing a PhD in anthropology and decided to go on and do an ethnography in the United States, which was really something, I had to learn a lot of things about because I didn't grow up in the US. So I was new to many things that I was learning, which was a lot of fun. And after my PhD at the University of Michigan, I ended up going on to more interdisciplinary journeys. Anthropology itself is very interdisciplinary. Within the field, we have four different subfields, and then I went on to do a postdoc in public health, which is where I work right now. So I bring together many different threads throughout my undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctoral studies, and that's sort of, you'll see that reflected in my presentation.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. I can't wait for that. And your presentation, we just talked about that, is called Resolving Cultural Conflicts in Nighttime Breastfeeding and Infant Sleep. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of barriers, and you mentioned you are from Hungary, what kind of barriers have you encountered here when you are researching the topic?
Well, I think, when I first started doing preliminary field work, I wasn't sure exactly what part of breastfeeding I was going to focus on. I already kind of had an idea. I was thinking about doing something about birth, breastfeeding. It was an issue that wasn't really represented particularly well in the literature and anthropology, and so I knew that that was of interest. But I wasn't entirely sure what my particular focus would be. And then when I went on to do my preliminary field work, I found out that people really wanted to talk about sleep. And I kind of was led to the topic, I think, by my participants. But the irony of that was that it seemed like people wanted to talk about it, but at the same time they were also hesitant to talk about it. And there was differences about who they felt comfortable talking to and who they didn't feel comfortable talking to. So I think one of the key issues was making sure that I could gain people's trust and that they would feel comfortable telling me what they were doing without any fear of being judged, whatever they decided to do about sleep and however they were going to negotiate that. And so I think that that was one of those delicate kind of it's always a little bit of a dance. In anthropology, you encounter many different participants. People live their lives differently from yours, which is a wonderful and exciting and stimulating thing. But of course, they don't know who I am, and it takes a long time for people to really feel that they can tell you these things. So it was really an honor to be allowed into people's homes and to listen to their journeys and hear about, all these very intimate things that many people didn't necessarily share with anyone. So I think once people shared, many, many other things, about their births and all the difficulties that they were having in their lives, I think people felt much more comfortable. But I think in terms of, for most people and, certainly for myself too, but anybody who just would do a single one-time meeting or an interview study, it would be a tricky thing to know whether people actually shared with you what really happened, because what happens is often much more messy than what people want to present to the outside, and kind of taboo, which is part of what the presentation is going to talk about.
Right, and that sounds absolutely fascinating also what you said. People, yeah, they're eager to share, but they really, as you mentioned there, it sounds like they really need to trust, build trust and to feel comfortable. So, yeah, so you get also a much more in-depth look at what is really happening rather than just skimming the surface. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I spent 2 years with the participants in my study, and that's fairly usual for anthropologists who do field work and, more in terms of preliminary field work and follow-up field work. So, altogether it's more than that. And I think that that time really shows in terms of what I'm able to bring to other people. And I think that's part of the reason why I think a lot of times when I speak to various audiences, people, find that it resonates, perhaps because it is, a little bit more of an intimate look than what people are necessarily used to.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Cecilia, so without giving too much away, so can you just tell us a little bit, what do you hope delegates will take away from your presentation? What is your hope for that?
hmm hmm I'm hoping that as an anthropologist, I can bring a little bit of a different perspective to these discussions about how one handles nighttime experiences. I think that a lot of times, at this point, breastfeeding is very much in the realm of a profession. It's something that's increasingly a realm where experts are very important, biomedical experts, lactation experts, various kinds of experts. And I think that in that dialogue, sometimes we forget how much our own cultural assumptions shape the way we think about these issues. And I think that the nighttime experiences and sleep practices are a perfect way to show and highlight some of these cultural influences. And I think once we take a look at how culture shapes the way we think about these issues, we can really start thinking about what are our assumptions and what are some different ways of thinking about these things. And then, maybe hopefully giving you that more, cross-cultural, a little bit of historical and broader, little bit of evolutionary perspectives all together helps to kind of shift some paradigms about what exactly we think of as normative practices during the nighttime and how we better support families in the end in a way that's culturally sensitive and appropriate and perhaps a little bit different from how some other people have conceptualized these issues as very separate. Breastfeeding is one particular medical issue, sleep is another particular issue. I'm hoping that I will bring a more integrated perspective.
That sounds absolutely interesting and fascinating. And I, for my part, can't wait for that presentation. The presentation is called, Cecilia's presentation is called Resolving Cultural Conflicts in Nighttime Breastfeeding and Infant Sleep. And it is part of our Gold Lactation 2017 conference. And the presentation will be live on April 18th. And for more information on this presentation and when it is being held in your time zone, please visit www.goldlactation.com. Cecilia, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was such a pleasure
Thank
having you.
you. Pleasure is all mine too.
Thank you. And thank you to all our listeners today. And we hope you will join us for Gold Lactation 2017 and this wonderful presentation. That is it for today. Thank you for listening, all. Bye bye.